Live from the Short Track News office in Blue Island, Illinois, you're listening to the Short Track News Radio Network with your host, Steve Bechtel. This is the home of the Raceway Park History, Midwest Short Track Memories, and Grundy County Speedway podcasts. Strap yourself in and get those belts tight, because for the next hour, we're talking racing.
Well, hello, everybody. It is great to be back finally on the air after about a 2.5-year layoff, thanks to COVID and a few other factors. But we are back, very excited to tackle this project again. I'd like to give you just a little brief history. For about 8 years, we did a show called Short Track News Radio, where we covered racing in the Chicagoland area, Grundy County Speedway, Illiana Speedway, Kankakee, Rockford, stuff like that. Took a break in 2019 and decided to bring the show back. It's going to be a little bit different this time. We're actually going to have 3 different shows on the network going forward, and the plan is every week possibly do a different episode, or maybe during the racing season we'll focus more on local racing. But planning to do 3 shows, one of them being Raceway Park History, which is pretty much what the name says. We're going to focus on, my home track where I grew up at, and a lot of you fans out there enjoy Raceway Park in Blue Island, Illinois. Just going to be talking all things Raceway Park for an hour. Going to be doing a show called Midwest Short Track Memories, where we can, we might focus on Raceway, Grundy, tracks that are no longer with us, like Waukegan Speedway, Illiana Speedway. Maybe we'll talk to some ARCO drivers of the past, ASA drivers, just a hodgepodge of stuff. And then we'll do a 3rd show called Grundy County Speedway, and that's where we'll pretty much just focus on the happenings out there in Morris, Illinois, race results, what's upcoming for the week. We'll be doing driver interviews. We'll be doing a lot of driver interviews in all of our episodes. So again, thank you for tuning in here to our maiden voyage. A little bit nervous. It's been a while since we've done this, and I wanted to start out with a Raceway Park history episode, and we are going to focus on the 1981 season, kind of do an 81 year in review. Again, this is new, hodgepodge of things that we're doing. We're wanting to throw different things out there at you fans. If you have an idea for something, if you like something, if you don't like something, let us know. Check out our website at shorttracknews.com. You can contact us there. You can also see all of the great sponsors that have come on board to kind of help get this project jump-started here in 2022. Really excited to get the show started. A good friend of mine, a guy that when I was a kid, and I just read his racing columns religiously, back with the Raceway days. And as we got older, we met, we talked, and now it's so cool that so many years after Raceway is closed, that me and Tony Baranek talk as much as we do, see each other in social circles, see each other at Grundy County Speedway, and he graciously has agreed to come on and help with some of these Raceway Park episodes that we do. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Tony Baranek to our show today. Tony, thanks for being here.
Steve, I'm really, really happy to be on your renewal, back from the ashes. Beautiful opening, by the way. I love that opening. I just want to wish you the best of luck with the show. Glad to be here. Nice to know that in 1981 you were a kid. I was a little older then. That's 41 years ago. Can you believe it?
Yeah, the time just flies. I was trying to, pick a year that we could kind of dive into. Obviously, the track was open, 62 years. Knew I kind of wanted to stay away from the 40s and 50s stuff, way out of my range. I mean, obviously, wasn't there for the 60s and a lot of the 70s, but, I've heard stories, I've read stuff, seen the pictures, seen the the history, stuff that Stan Kalwazinski posts, and talking to you, guys like Paul Beck, Wayne Coleman, Don Rich, just so many guys that I've talked to and stuff, that kind of filled in the pieces for me in the 70s that I missed. But I picked 81. It was kind of a year of transition out there. A group called the Calumet Park Raceway Associates came in and leased the track from Pete Jenin. And it was a whirlwind 12 months, to say the least. It obviously did not end in a perfect manner. And needless to say, Pete Jenin was back, leading the ship in 1982. But, man, 1981 to me was just a year that, I guess when you're a kid, it's always going to stand out to you regardless, a little bit more than when you're an adult. But, we had some of the bigger name drivers in the area, coming out to race. Larry Schuler, a guy who did not frequent that much, came out on opening day, won the 100-lapper. The Mason-Dixon Classic that a lot of people forget about, 1981. Ricky Rudd, Neil Bonnet from the NASCAR side of things, came on board and ran an event, probably the first time and last that, any NASCAR guys kind of got brought in to the track, in the midst of their careers. The first and only Artgo show took place that year, and what a magical, event that was, again, especially to a kid that, was reading about all this stuff and Midwest racing news, stuff like that. But great battles, great point battles, we were getting close, probably about a 3-4 year window to where, the super late models that we're used to nowadays was kind of coming to an end at Raceway Park. 4 years later, they'd go to the Rockford Rule type thing. But just when I say 1981, Tony, what kind of sticks out in your head when you think back to that season?
Well, just like a whole new world being Raceway Park. I mean, like you said, the Artgo show, the NASCAR stars coming in. I remember that vividly. I remember going. I think we went out to lunch with Neil Bonnet and Ricky Rudd, and it was just. It seemed like Raceway, with the new guys that came in, they were going for the big show. They were going to turn the place into, maybe nationally recognized again, as it was in the 60s and 50s as being the world's most busiest track. It was just something else, and as you said, some great point battles that year. And I raced at Raceway Park in 1981. So I remember that. We had a meteor race. I didn't win.
Those were always fun to watch. Yeah. And again, just kind of preparing for this show, again, there was just so many things that stood out. I mean, Hobby Fest was pretty much at its height back then. And for fans that don't know what that was, our hobby stock division, which is basically what a street stock division is nowadays, there were nights where and we're not exaggerating, there were nights they'd get 60, 70, 80 hobby stock cars. And the track decided, we got so many of them, let's just give them their own night. And they ran on Friday nights, and they ran a gazillion heat races. They ran, consolation races. They ran 2 20-car features, one with the top 20 guys in points and one with everybody else. And to me, that was kind of the height of the hobby stock division. Things kind of changed after that. You had a lot of guys in the next couple of years that, moved up to late model or moved up to sportsman, moved to different racetracks as they furthered their careers. They split the division into a hobby stock A and B class. And to me, I felt that kind of watered down the competition to doing that. But to me, 81 was just phenomenal. And then also 81, the final year of the short-lived Sportsman Division. They ran it for 3 years. 79, Leo Menz won the championship in a runaway. 80, Terry Laxton just obliterated the competition. I think he won 33 feature races. And in 81, you had Terry Laxton and Jake Outshorn that pretty much a friendly rivalry at first. Once mid-season comes, it took a little turn and got a little bit more competitive, and I remember some fights and helmets thrown on the track, but that was the best sportsman point battle, and then that division was gone after the 1981 season. So 3 real good point battles, Tony. I was doing a little bit of history, and we'll talk, especially about the late models, but back then the divisions, your points were based on dollars won. So if you ended the season with 10,000 points, you won $10,000. And the late model championship was decided by 40 points. The sportsman championship, only 70. And the hobby stock championship, 75 points. So all 3 championships that year came down to less than $100 won, which was a couple of feature positions in one race, which basically could have decided your championship. So after running, 30 to 40 nights that year, it, basically came down to, a couple, feature finish results throughout the season. And you were digging up some stuff too about Bob Weidemeyer and Dave Weidemeyer in the 1981 season, Tony.
Oh, that's right. That one, that race was so close, they didn't even have the champion right after the last night. They ran a Monza, and at the end of that, it was determined that David had enough points. But he had been chasing Bobby all year. Bobby had a great start to the season, and David just kept chipping away, and finally passed him during that Monza. But after that race and before the following week, they did an audit of points, and they found out on opening night, way back at the beginning of the season, Bobby Weidemeyer was given 1 less position than he should have been, which, gave him more dollars. So they corrected that, and then they found a race, and I remember the race, when Frank Olinsky was DQ'd after winning the race. I don't remember what the DQ was for, but I do remember this happening, and I know I think they paid him the money but took away the points. But at any rate, Bobby was second, and they forgot to give him the points for first. So when that all shook out, it wound up being Bobby's championship. And I got to say, David was very gracious about it. He had won the previous 2 seasons, and, Bobby had been chasing him, for a few years. I think he was probably happy that they found the mistake. And then, of course, Bobby took that and ran with it the next year. I think he won 33 features maybe the following season.
Yeah, he definitely dominated. Yeah, that next year. And Bobby had a strong start to 81. By mid-season, it looked like David was starting to make some rumblings, was showing up every week, running really good. But you thought Bobby had a safe enough point lead. And then August came around, and Bobby Weidemeyer just had horrible luck, horrible finishes, a lot of crazy stuff was happening to him. And David made it a tight battle, right there at the end. And yeah, I remember, they announced one champion, then the next weekend they did the point audit, and it went to Bobby. And that was in the middle of a 5-year run, Tony, where Weidemeyer won the championship, 5 years in a row. David won 2, and then Bobby won 2. David came back and won a third. So, and then they were pretty much done kind of racing Raceway at that point, and just had kind of moved on to the bigger tracks in the area. A couple other notes I have here, and this, I thought of this, and this really, at the time you're not really thinking about it, but a thing that happened in 81, which I thought was so cool, is they brought in a company called Phil's Thrills, and they videotaped every night of racing. And then afterwards, you could go down to the East Bar, and they, put the tape in, and you could watch that night's racing. And at the time, I don't think people really thought much of it. You're down there getting a couple of cocktails, you got your payout and stuff like that. But how valuable, are those tapes now, 40 years later, when you can find them and transfer them to DVD, put them on YouTube and look back and see that. And man, they only did it for that 1 year. There was a couple other people that videotaped, late 80s, hit and miss some stuff in the 90s, but really a treasure trove of racing footage back in 1981 just because of that company, Phil's Thrills. And it's kind of cool to see those videos popping around, Tony.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, professionally done. I mean, that's the big thing about it. It's like watching a television broadcast of those races. Raceway Park is just so unique. I mean, when you think about it, earlier you mentioned the 1960s and 50s, and that's kind of tough to go back and try and reminisce about that. But the fact is, we've heard so many stories, we almost have it in our minds. I never saw Bob Conger race, but I can see him going around that racetrack because I've heard so many stories about it. And it's the same with the videos. There's so many just handheld cameras, people taking videos. You have most of them, from the 60s and then the 50s and Raceway. I don't think any other racetrack, at least to that volume, has as much history out there where maybe for years to come it'll still be memorable.
Yeah, and there's, new stuff pops up all the time. I got stuff 10 years ago from people. I got stuff 5 years ago. People, they dig stuff out, in their basement, or they didn't realize they have the tapes, and, or they don't know how to transfer them. And, hey, if you ever come across any Raceway Park footage, reach out to us, shorttracknews.com, and we'll show you how to get it transferred, or we'll work out something with you and get it on YouTube, because, man, I really love posting that stuff online and being able to share it with people. You get a guy that, he ran one season, maybe a hobby stock guy or something, a sportsman guy, a lower division, and all of a sudden I got his one feature win on video from 40 years ago, and he can't believe it, and he gets to show his grandchildren that, Papa used to race 40 years ago back at Raceway Park. Tony, I want to hit some stats here real quick. Thankfully, over the years, Wayne Adams and George Roulette kind of kept great stats, year to year. I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of them throughout the season. I want to look at some late model stuff real quick. So 1981, 17 different feature winners. I look back through a lot of the stats. There were a lot of years where 5 or 6 different feature winners. Those years when Taylor was dominating, and Bill Van Allen, and Ray Young, Kemperman, a lot of the guys, they won a bunch of features, and there wasn't a lot left for the rest of the field. 17 different late model feature winners. I want to read you some of these names, and some of them will surprise you and kind of stand out. Dave Waltmeyer with 9, Bob Waltmeyer 7, Frank Galinsky 5, Jerry Kemperman 3, Larry Schuler 2, Woody Church 2, and then the rest of these guys had 1 each, including Leo Menz, Burt Weidemeyer, James Bond, Tom Jones, Jim Sauter, Mark Martin, NASCAR star Mark Martin, Tom Nielsen, Billy Kuhn, Pat Eklund, Larry Middleton, Denny James. 17 different feature winners, and man, there's probably a lot of stories behind some of those wins.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember. Well, one of Schuler's wins was opening day, was it not?
Correct. I talked to Larry later on, working at Grundy, and I asked him. I said, Larry, you only showed up for the big races, and he said, Steve, he goes, it takes me 50 laps just to figure that place out. So he goes, I'd be no good 30 lappers. But no, Larry, he won 2. I want to say he showed up only twice the whole season, and he won opening day 100 lapper, and he also won that lap Mason-Dixon Classic with Ricky Rudd and Neil Bonnet.
Okay. Yeah, I remember him on opening day. I remember him on opening day saying, when I think Wayne asked him, so are you coming back soon? No. And Wayne said, really? And he goes, no, I can't win. I don't want to race there. This track is too tough. So that's why I was a little surprised when you said he had 2 wins. Actually, if you really get down to it, the fact that there were 17 different winners kind of shocks me, because I remember in June of that year, in an interview with Ron Malik, saying how disappointed he was because early in the season they were getting 7 cars, 8 cars, and he was talking about 82 only having about 8 late model shows. He was really, really unhappy with the situation with the late models in June. So it must have really taken off the last half of that season to produce that many late model feature winners.
Yeah, 11 different guys ended up with one win. Obviously, Jim Sauter, Mark Martin picking up their wins at the ARCO show. I remember Leo Menz picked up probably his only late model feature win early in the season. It was second or third week. It was one of those nights where it was like 48 degrees and cold and a smaller field, like you said. And I remember he had that brown and tan number 80 Camaro, and he put the car in victory lane. But yeah, it's just cool to kind of look at some of those names. You know, James Bond, probably his last feature win at Raceway in 81. Burt Weidemeyer, also probably his last win. Denny James picking up a win. Larry Middleton, I remember that wasn't even in his own car. He was driving a number 10 car that wasn't even his, and not the familiar 71 that we were used to. So just kind of cool to see that. Then let me read some of these names from the heat races. Pat Eklund, 10 heat races, had the most. And you had your normal guys, Wayne Coleman, James Bond, Leo Menz, Kemperman, the Weltmeyer brothers. Bob Dotter, Sr., won a heat race out there. Imagine that was probably in that red and tan number 7 Buick Regal that they had. Tom Reffner, the ARCO star, obviously won a heat race during the ARCO show. George Hill, I don't remember that one.
Wowza.
Which I also think might have had some ties to that car that Dotter drove. A bunch of guys drove that car that year.
Mm-hmm. That was the blue car, right?
No, that was actually a red. It was blue in 80, and then in 81 it was a red Buick Regal with the number 7 on it. And I remember
Nielsen wound up with that car, right?
No, I think you're confusing that maybe with the 7 car that was the Richie Halligan owned car that he ended up driving, that James Bond drove.
Yeah.
And stuff like
okay.
But yeah, and then the last name on my list, Ray Young, 1981. Obviously, that was his last victory at Raceway. A lot of people thought, Ray, was done in the early 70s and really didn't come back. I remember he ran a couple shows in 81, I think, in anticipation of the ARCO show. And as I'm sitting here thinking about this right now, I actually have a picture of that car because it was number 92. He had changed his number. He was running ASA stuff, and Dick Trickle was not, so he ended up changing his number. And but Ray Young, one of your favorites, picking up a heat race in 81. Do you remember Ray racing out there at all in 81?
I remember the 92 car. I'm sure I could, I can envision him, I guess, that night in 81. I remember that car. Ray Young basically left Raceway after 73, which was his championship season, first season I was a fan out there. I was very disappointed, and I was just a fan. I wasn't writing. I didn't start writing until about 76, 77. So I was a hardcore racing fan in those years. And when Ray Young went, very sparingly back to Raceway after 73, I had to pick up a new favorite, which wound up being Ray Pera. But, always was glad to see Ray come back. And he certainly didn't disappear from victory lane because he won a lot of races after 1973 at Grundy and, in other places. So Stash Coleman was not on that list.
Let me take a look. Stash Coleman, 3 heat race wins in 1980.
But no features.
No features. He picked up a dash, though. And I remember he had motor problems that year. I remember him not being there for the ARCO show, and they had hurt the motor earlier in the season, so they didn't run a full year. But that was pretty much his last kind of full year. I know he hopped in some other cars, throughout the 80s and 90s and ran a couple shows here and there. But, yeah, that was, 2 more of our, heroes from the 70s, James Bond and Stash Coleman, pretty much their last years, driving at Raceway.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yeah, I always considered 81 and maybe the couple of years before that as the real changing of the guard, from the, Bud Kaler, Ted Janasek, Paul Bauer, Ray Young, all of those legendary race car drivers who, they were all getting up there in age. And also, we had the store-bought cars come in. And that's where Bobby Dotter and Ted Young came in. Ted Moore, excuse me.
Ted Moore, yeah.
Ted Moore. And, all of a sudden, guys like Bud Kaler couldn't keep up. And eventually, because they were with their store-bought stuff. And Stosh was about the last. Jerry Kemperman was still around. Jerry was kind of the young buck in the middle to late 60s. So I guess if you want to consider him old guard, he was still around. But yeah, 81. You definitely saw the change come full.
Well, I'll tell you what, Tony, why don't you stay tight real quick? I got to go to a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll talk about some sportsman action here on the Raceway Park History podcast.
Save the date and make plans now. March 20th at the Will County Fairgrounds in Peatone, Illinois. It's the 6th annual Chicagoland Racing Memorabilia and Collectibles Show, plus Racers Reunion. This show covers everything including NASCAR, IndyCar, USAC, ASA, ARTGO, and more. Our vendors have die-cast cars, models, programs, pictures, posters, old videos, and anything else you can think of. Come mingle and meet former drivers from the Chicagoland racing scene. Shows run from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. Admission's only $7, and kids under 11 are free. Food and full bar available. For more information, check out our website at ChicagolandRacersReunion.com.
If you're coming to the Grundy County Speedway this summer, you better come hungry, because Grill Masters Trackside Grill has you covered. We offer ribeye, steak sandwiches, Italian beef, butterfly pork chops, chicken tenders, burgers, hot dogs, and more. Got a sweet tooth? Head over to the sweet shop for southern fried pies, funnel cakes, fried Oreos, root beer floats, and our fan favorite, lemon shake-up. Want something different? Shop at our Hot Lap Mexican Grill. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook under Grill Masters Trackside Grill for our weekly specials.
At the Src Pro Bowler Shop, we carry all major brands of bowling balls, bags, and accessories, including shoes, cleaners, and tapes. We offer professional ball fitting and custom drilling. We can plug the ball, refinish, and re-drill. We have the equipment to rejuvenate your ball and bring it back to life. SRC is the one-place stop to shop for any of your bowling needs. Give us a call at 708-407-8584 or find us on Facebook under SRC Pro Bowler Shop.
You're listening to Short Track News Radio. If you're enjoying the show, please consider advertising your business with us. Or fans can make a donation right through the website to help keep things running. For more information, check out shorttracknews.com. And now, back to the show.
Well, back here on the Raceway Park History podcast, Tony, moving on to the Sportsman Division, we mentioned the first 2 years, kind of a runaway battle for those two champions, Leo Menz and Terry Laxton. 81, Jake Outshorn came out with a new car and was fast right away. Laxton, wasn't there for all the nights early on, had some problems, and Outshorn kind of built up a decent sized lead. But once Laxton got running, boy, did he put the pressure on him. And a little bit of a contrast from the late models, only 5 different feature winners in the Sportsman Division. Terry Laxton, 18 wins, and Jake Outshorn, only 5. And Outshorn wins the championship. Jim Johnson had 6 wins, Mike Tobock 2, Dean Bartels 1, and what a battle those two put on the last half of the season in the Sportsman Division.
It got testy, that's for sure. I wrote a couple of columns about about their rivalry. It kind of went back to the year before a little bit. They'd had a couple of incidents, but it really, I remember talking to Jake Outshorn, about probably in July maybe, when he was talking about, the guy's fast and he's catching me. He goes, he's taking me out 6 races in a row. And I put in parentheses, Outshorn claims, because you don't really know how that went, but yeah. it got. I mean, Terry was a very aggressive driver, and there's no question about it. And it kind of came to a head one night when Outshorn pushed Laxton out of the way, and then Laxton came right back down and dumped him into the wall. And it was. I think I wound up scolding them after that in a column, saying, "You guys better chill out, because it's not going to be pretty." And in the end, despite the vast difference in feature wins, Outshorn did wind up winning the championship. What a battle!
Yeah, Outshorn was probably counting down the days, hoping let's get to the end of the season. And ironically, I remember that deal where, Outshorn got pushed into the wall and wrecked the car, and he got out and met Mr. Laxton at the start-finish line. And if he could have, he would have completely just dragged him out of the car right there. And I remember there might have been a helmet thrown and stuff like that. And about 3 years ago, I came across that whole night of racing, and we got that up on our YouTube page. You can find the links to our YouTube channel also on our website, shorttracknews.com. And search through the videos from 1981, and you'll be able to see that incident live. But yeah, it was a shame they didn't get enough cars to kind of keep it going. I like the division. A dear friend of mine who just recently passed away. We miss you, Mike. But Mike Tobock, always had sharp-looking cars in that division and ran well. Dean Bartels was fast. Jerry Clark had some wins over that 3-year period. Gary Raven kind of cut his teeth, running in the Sportsman Division, picking up some wins. Jim Johnson was always fast, kind of seemed, right behind Laxton and Outshorn a lot of the times. But yeah, Outshorn picking up the championship, and then pretty much had to move up to late model the next year once they got rid of the Sportsman Division and cut it into, the A and B hobby stock division. But just some of the names from that division that year, as we said, Kevin DeGraff, a graduate from the hobby stock. Two drivers that from their battles in the hobby stocks, Nancy Prince and Barbara Bozak. 81 would be the last year that we'd see Nancy Prince pick up a victory at Raceway Park, and then Barbara Bozak ended up moving up to late model, ran a few years, at Raceway, ran some stuff. I've seen pictures of her at Grundy, so she did run late models for a couple of years after that. I've seen pictures of Dean Bartels in his car running, dirt at Santa Fe. I saw that car at Ileana, so he continued running. But yeah, that was just a fun division to watch, and I wish they had 5 or 6 more cars to where they could have kept the division running. But where there was no shortage of cars, Tony, the hobby stock division, again, looking at some stats, we mentioned 17 different winners in the late model division. The hobby stock division had 21 different winners in the course of the 1981 season. And that was a dogfight too, for the points. Don McMakin led for a while. Roger Rubino was always, in the top 2-3 points, throughout the year. And Scott Sturkowitz, I remember him, wrecking a car right at the end of the season, and they debuted a new car, and he ended up eking out the championship by only 75 points in 1981. And man, you probably got a lot of memories from the hobby stock guys from back then.
Oh, that was crazy. Absolutely crazy. I mean, I really, and this was, probably for about 5 years thinking this way. There were so many of the hobby stocks, street stocks, whatever they would be called from one year to the next. I thought that was the future of that racetrack. I really did. And I mean, when you think about how many cars they pulled on those hobby fests, it seemed endless. And any given night, you had 10 to 12 cars that could win that feature race. And by the same token, you know, just to get in that race was amazing because they would run the consies.
Yeah.
I do remember one thing I remember vividly is Rich Rogers with that.
Yeah, let's bring him up.
Winning just the.
Go ahead.
He was a heat race winning machine.
You want to take
that
how many he won?
It's a wild guess. I mean, 27.
22 heat races for
22.
Rich Rogers.
Okay.
Leading everybody. And you think of it, you know, there's guys that run
like 27.
There's guys that run a 10-year career and don't, you know, pick up 22 heat races, you know, in a career. And Rich Rogers, they used to call him king of the heat races. And while we're talking about Rich, I got to give a shout out to my buddy Mike Rogers. I know he'll be listening to this. Miss you, Mike. You moved out of the area. We don't get to hang out as much as we used to, but man, I appreciate the support and all the kind words you're always sending to me. But yeah, the Rogers brothers, good guys. 22 heat races, just phenomenal.
Unique looking car too.
Yeah, for you fans that maybe didn't see the car or whatever, for years he was number 773, and he was a Bud Kaler fan and a Bob Pronger fan, and he had the color combos. You know, the car was split in half, and you know, was 773. Got red on the one side for Kaler, black and orange on the other side for Pronger. I think the track kind of, you know, said, you know, hey, let's do something with this number, and for, you know, he changed it just to 77, but the one side was black, the other side was red, and God, he was so young looking. I remember that too. He'd get out of the car and he was a little kid. But yeah, 22 heat races. I want to read the feature wins, Tony. Like we said, 21 different winners. Eight of them for Scott Sturkowitz. He was on top. Dennis Ponton 6, Don McMakin 5, Roger Rubino 5, Bob Seabach 5, Ron Varner, Paul Yancic, Dan Deutsch, Ray Davis with 4, Scott Tanzillo, Craig Johnson with 3, Butch McNeil, Chuck Uris, Rich Rogers with 2, and then Dave Jarrell, Randy Gifford, Larry Galster, Bill Moselle, John Nutley, Pat Eklund, must have been driving the Ray Davis car that night, and Jack Annan with 1. And when you go through that list, you know, briefly, you know, Scott Sturkowitz ran late model at Raceway for a very short time. Ponton moved up to late model. McMakin moved up. Rubino moved up. You know, Paul Yancic, late model. Dan Deutsch, late model. Scott Tanzillo, who, I mean, I was a big fan of Scott Tanzillo when he would show up, but he, you know, won a Sportsman championship at Ileana. Craig Johnson, you know, moved up to late model. Dave Jarrell moved up to late model. John Nutley moved up to late model. So it's just kind of cool to see how many of these guys progressed through the sportsman ranks at other racetracks, or late model at other racetracks, some of them at Raceway Park, and just kind of unbelievable. You know, like I said, to see these names, you know, John Nutley, guy that's still racing today down in Florida, you know, getting the job done, and just to think back to some of these memories. I'll have to take a picture of this and maybe post it on our Facebook page. And our link will also be on the website, shorttracknews.com, because I don't think I'll have time to read through these. There's probably 60 guys that won heat races, which is just incredible. I'll read some of the names that I remember as a kid. You know, Bob Norkus, I remember him in the 32 car. Jack Bretal, he was another young guy. They used to call him Baby Bretal in the 55 car. Mike Fusco, Larry Brevitz. And
Larry Brevitz, I believe, was the first driver that let me drive his car in one of those media races. Might have been Pete Yuko. I think Yuko was first. They'll let me do it. But Brevitz, he was a great guy. Great guy.
Yeah. he was involved with Gary Raven for a lot of years on the scene. But yeah, it literally, it's more than one sheet if you look at all the heat race winners. And then on the very bottom, I see Roger Smith. So Roger must have won an official for him to be on there. But yeah, Frank Anson, that was another guy. I love that. He had a green number 03 car, and I love that paint job for some reason. It's just weird, some of the things that you look back and see them. And a lot of those guys from Cal Park, man, a lot of guys that used to keep their cars right down the street, drive them to the track, that all kind of got their start, basically, like me, just living so close to the track, and the bug kind of bites you. But yeah, Hobby Fest was just insane, and good point battle. Scott Serkowitz wins the championship over Roger Rubino, Paul Yancic, Don McMakin, Dennis Ponton, Bob Seabock, Craig Johnson, Ray Davis, Dan Deutsch, and Rich Rogers. And like you said, every one of those guys capable of winning a feature race. So yeah, just incredible competition. Dennis Ponton, man, I love seeing that name. Dennis, I didn't really see his dad race. I know he had a bunch of other family members that race, but man, Dennis to me was like a Dale Earnhardt type of guy. He wasn't going to give an inch out there. And I remember his hobby stock days. Remember, it's so funny to hear the stories when you talk. Oh man, I used to go to Raceway, or I remember Raceway. Man, the Pontons, man, they were tough. They were tough on the track, and they were equally as tough off the track in the pits. If you had a run-in, with them. And to see Dennis Ponton when he moved up through the ranks, some of his first late models, not quite as quick as some of the guys out there, but man, he would just be sideways, sparks flying, parts dragging off the car. I remember Mike Pockris just trying to move him out of the way almost every night, trying to pass him. And Ponton, there's 20 laps to go, and he was acting like it was the final lap, and he wasn't going to let anybody by. But yeah, a good name seeing Dennis Ponton on there and stuff like that. What names, kind of stick out to you? Obviously, Rich Rogers for all the heat races, but yeah, a lot of those guys moved on to, very successful careers. Dan Deutsch, a great career at Raceway Park, and man, in 81, him and, crew chief, car owner Paul Sluzzi. I used to go by that car just about every night, Tony, as a little kid, and sit in it every night. I mean, every single night, like something changed. I did it again. And it's just crazy, the stuff that you think about. And then to talk to Paul nowadays and see him at Grundy, he's an advertiser on the show. We appreciate the support. But yeah, just crazy to think back all the guys that could have won in the hobby stock division.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, when we think about that, and I don't know if you mentioned him that year or not, but the one hobby stock, street stock driver that at least I think might have been the best of them all, the smoothest driver, certainly, Mike Varner. I cannot even, you'd always, every week, this guy crashed into this guy, and they climbed the fence to get him in the pits, and they're fighting. I don't recall Mike Varner getting into a problem ever, and he just won. And he had,
Mike was the champion in 1980, the year prior, and I know that they kind of, pulled together, and he was going to do whatever he could to kind of help Ron. And I do see, Ron Varner listed here. Didn't see, Mike anywhere. I don't think he hopped in the car that whole year. I do remember him hopping in an older Dave Waltmeyer late model that year. I have pictures of him in a late model in the 1981 season. But yeah, by 81, I think Mike Varner was done with the hobby stock days. And like you said, he as close as the battle was in 81, it wasn't close in 80. Mike kind of ran away with the battle. I remember he got into a wreck right at the end of the season, I think lapping a car, and the guy kind of stuffed him in the turn 4 wall head on, and the car got destroyed pretty bad. And even then, he still had such a huge lead, it really didn't matter. But yeah, Mike Varner, Ron Varner, some of the stories you hear about those guys later on, through the years. I got a buddy, Mike Coretto, who was just good friends with Ron and Mike Varner. He traveled on the road when Mike Varner was running the Arco series and stuff. And every time me and Mike talk, he talks about Ron Varner, Mike Varner, all the stories, all the the good times. There's a tape. There's a Hobby Fest tape that I have on YouTube, and you can hear Wayne Adams saying that, back then you used to have Mike Rogers, super fan kind of, we'll give you $15 if this guy wins the race, or somebody loses a tire, they get $10 or something like that. He was telling a story, I believe it was maybe Ron Malik, the guy that was promoting in 81, that went up to Ron Varner and said, if you win the feature tonight, I'll buy you a case of beer. And Wayne Adams is like, well, Ron Varner must be thirsty because he won the feature out here last night. And you can hear it on the tape the next day. And it's just just to be able to hear Wayne Adams too on those tapes, the longtime, announcer, just revered out there by, the fans, and to be able to go back and hear him on the microphone with his stats and everything. And, the drivers are ready. Your starter is Roger Smith. He's ready. What about you? Are you ready? And to hear the fans, kind of shout. It's kind of cool to look back and watch those videos, Tony.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If we go back to the hobby stock division for just another minute, too.
Sure.
Where did Danny Deutsch wind up that year? Where did you say he finished in the points?
Deutsch. Let me check out the handy-dandy George Roulette stats here. Danny Deutsch was 9th in points, which was a little surprising. I know in the year, Paul Sluzzi won a heat race in that car, and I think he drove that car a couple nights. So I believe Dan Deutsch wasn't there every night, which kind of added up to, him not, competing. Because the year before, when they started Hobby Fest, I want to say Dan won like 4 out of the 6 Hobby Fest events. I mean, they used to call him, the Hobby Fest King for that. And so, yeah, he would later go on and win a Hobby Stock Championship. But I think in 81, I just don't think he was maybe there every night. And I think that's what kind of kept him down. But Dan was another smooth driver that just, got through traffic, really didn't have many run-ins. We'll have to talk about the year he won his championship. He had a good run-in with Don Tite. We'll talk about that when we get to that year. But for the most part, Dan was pretty smooth, and Paul Sluzzi kept that car running good, and he was he was always
what a team.
Yeah,
what a team they were. That's for sure.
And nice to see him have success. Nothing better than having a homegrown guy kind of move up through the ranks and then have success at the home track. A lot of those guys, John Nutley and Craig Johnson, and a lot of those guys, they moved up, but then they moved out. And they didn't really run a lot of late model events at Raceway Park. So it was cool to see Dan kind of stay there and move up to late models, and not only stay, but to to have success. Tony, I'm going to go to one more quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Save the date and make plans now. March 20th at the Will County Fairgrounds in Ponton, Illinois. It's the 6th annual Chicagoland Racing Memorabilia and Collectibles Show, plus Racers Reunion. This show covers everything including NASCAR, IndyCar, USAC, ASA, ArtGo, and more. Our vendors have die-cast cars, models, programs, pictures, posters, old videos, and anything else you can think of. Come mingle and meet former drivers from the Chicagoland racing scene. Shows run from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. Admission's only $7, and kids under 11 are free. Food and full bar available. For more information, check out our website at ChicagolandRacersReunion.com. Whether you missed last week's races or just want to watch your favorite drivers go at it again, Damn It Race Videos has your door-to-door, bumper-slamming short track action. Featuring weekly racing from Grundy County Speedway and South Bend Motor Speedway, Damn It Race Videos covers the latest rivalries, wrecks, and victory lane celebrations. Like our Facebook page and subscribe today on YouTube. Remember, racing is always better in person, but when you can't be at the track, Damn It Race Videos has you covered. Orland Precision Machine in Frankfort, Illinois is a family-owned, full-range CNC machine shop with engineering, machining, and welding capabilities. We are 100% committed to supplying high-quality, competitively priced products to our customers. Whether you're in need of 1 part or 1,000, customer service and satisfaction are our #1 priorities. We also pride ourselves on our on-time delivery service and offer local delivery. Industries currently serving include crane and heavy equipment, food processing, steel mill, railroad elevator, and water valve systems. For more information, check out our website at orlandprecisionmachine.com.
You're listening to Short Track News Radio. If you're enjoying the show, please consider advertising your business with us. Or fans can make a donation right through the website to help keep things running. For more information, check out shorttracknews.com. And now, back to the show.
Well, here on the Raceway Park History podcast with Tony Baranek. And again, fans, if you can, check out the website, shorttracknews.com. Had a lot of people asking if they can help support the show. So we got a donate button on there. You can do it right through PayPal with a credit card if you'd like to send something and you appreciate what we're doing here. We're looking to do shows weekly throughout the year. And once the racing season starts, maybe we might do a couple shows. We'll focus on Grundy County Speedway and their racing season. But again, I want to focus on the old stuff. I love talking to Raceway Park, the Midwest short track memories with guys like Tony Baranek and Stan Kalwazinski and just a lot of the fans and drivers that have been there. That to me, I just love talking about it. And it's great that we can do this and bring this, to the fans. If you go to our website, you can see where you can follow us. We'll have the show up on YouTube, hopefully tonight, possibly might not be till tomorrow. You can follow us on Spotify. We also have our links on there for Twitter and Facebook if you'd like to follow us on there. And just real quick, want to thank our sponsors, Grill Masters Trackside Grill, Src, the Pro Bowler Shop with Wayne Coleman, Orland Precision Machine, Elite Trade Show Services, Damn It Race Videos, MidwestRacingTees.com. That's where you can go and get the old Raceway Park shirts, the vintage ones with the track champions and all the drivers, RaceDriverCards.com. And then don't forget the Chicagoland Racing Memorabilia and Collectibles Show coming next month, March 20th at the Will County Fairgrounds in Peatone, Illinois. So all that information on our website, shorttracknews.com. Tony, some other stuff that I was just looking at that I just remember from 81. Real quick, I did count the hobby stock heat race winners. 50 different drivers won heat races in the hobby stock division, which is just mind-boggling that there's that many. And then I don't know, I would imagine you were out there pretty much, on a nightly basis. But do you remember 81, I remember US 99, they were on the radio all the time. Raceway Park was advertised on. I remember Friday nights, it was only 99-cent admission. They had 99-cent beers for a certain, maybe up until 8 o'clock when the races started or something. I mean, a great promotion with the country station US 99. I remember they had the dancing dollars there. They had girls dressed up as dollar bill costumes, which was, as a kid, it was just weird. You saw this dollar bill and you saw legs. And I was like, what the hell is that? As a little kid. The Oak Ridge Boys. I saw the Oak Ridge Boys play live, and it blew my mind when they played Elvira, which was, all the rage back in 1981 as, again, a little kid. But, the Oak Ridge Boys had a concert there. I remember they had, that stage where they would, try to do stuff. I don't really remember. Everybody says, yeah, I saw the Oak Ridge Boys and they played the concert on that stage between turns 1 and 2. And then I tell them, well, yeah, you weren't there then because they played on the front stretch. But, I just remember seeing they had bands that would play in the bar after the races. And
I remember that.
And then poof, they were gone. Again, maybe we'll talk about that in a later show. Definitely plan on trying to get, members of the Jenin family on the show. Roger Smith, maybe he can shed some light on that. Probably better for them to tell the story than for us just to speculate. But yeah, it was a whirlwind year in 1981. Saw a lot of things. I remember walking to the track, and the first thing I saw in the pit area was that, that big Mark Martin truck that he had, and he had his whole pit area roped off like he was a superstar. And, quite frankly, he was back in 1981. And to see, again, and you appreciate it more later when you're older and you realize that, Ed Howe was there walking around the pits helping people. Larry Deachins, who tragically was life about 6 weeks later at an accident at Kaukauna up in Wisconsin, was there. Joe Shearer, the only time he raced there. Jim Sauter, the only time he raced there. Steve Burgess. Dick Trickle, second time he raced there. He stopped in for kind of an impromptu visit just on his way home from Grundy, is the story I hear, and ran back there in the early 70s. But, he had Dick Trickle pulling in. It was crazy. And you kind of wish that ARCA would have came back. And, I think Pete, had a different philosophy on doing things versus some of the other guys, but still, 81 was just incredible. Anything else you think of that you kind of remember from 81, Tony?
Well, I mean, just as you mentioned, that ARTGO show, which really was just an incredible evening. But I do remember real excited to see Larry Deachins that night, and I believe he crashed his car like a week earlier. He didn't have his normal car there that night, and he wasn't really going to be competitive.
Yeah, Raceway, the ARCO show was on a Tuesday, and he had raced on a Sunday and destroyed the car, so he was scrambling to find a car to run. I think he might have even been the point leader at that point in ARCO. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he just, he gave it the old college try. It was amazing to talk to him that night. One other little aside from that, years later at Chicagoland Speedway, I had quite an interview with Mark Martin. And I mentioned to him, so do you remember this track, Raceway Park? Oh, that little racetrack. That was a tough racetrack to race at. And we kind of got a laugh out of that he and he did well that night too, didn't he? Did he get one of them?
Yeah, he set fast time in the first one. Surprisingly, he ended up getting lapped, and he finished like 8th, I believe. But the way they started the second one, he was kind of up front, and he won the second one. And they did their points a little bit different. John McCarnes included your qualifying points, which it was $500 for fast time, which is huge. And so he ended up winning the overall. I figured it out. A few years ago, I put a little a blog up about that event. And if we would have used the Raceway point system, Burt Weidemeyer would have actually been the overall winner of that deal. But because they included the qualifying money, it actually ended up going to Mark Martin. Tony, we got about a minute left. Man, this hour flew by. I can't thank you enough for kind of being my co-pilot on this. I hope we can get you back on at least to do some of these Raceway episodes. I'm going to leave it up to you. I'm going to let you pick the next year that we review. So if you got a favorite year or something that sticks out to you, we'll let you pick it.
Okay, you don't want to know now, do you? Or do you?
Oh yeah, let me know. Let us know. We'll let the fans know.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, my favorite year ever was 1973. Believe it or not, the first year I was there as a fan. Ray Young, who I had met many years earlier as a young child, my older brother Joe took me to the racetrack, and Ray Young couldn't be nice enough. Gave me a bunch of pictures. He really sold racing to me when I was a young kid, but I never went there after that, very, very few times. And then in 1973, we were old enough, a buddy of mine, Tom Pankowitz, we went out to the track, became big fans. I jumped on the bandwagon for Ray Young. So let's do 73.
Okay, 1973 it is. Well, Tony, I want to thank you again for coming on board, fans. I hope you enjoyed the first show. We're going to do something again next week. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see everybody then.
Thank you for listening to Short Track News Radio. We'd like to thank our sponsors, our guests, and most importantly, all you racing fans out there that tune in every week. Keep supporting those local racetracks, and we'll see you again next time.